I drove out of the big parking garage in downtown Raleigh after my company's year-end party. It was freezing cold outside and tiny drops of ice rain were falling hard on the windshield. My name is Eloan Fowler and I am 36 years old. I work as a project manager at a big medicine company in North Carolina. I am also a single mom and my little boy, Oren, is 8 years old. Whenever I have to stay out late for work, my dad usually watches him for me. I turned onto our quiet street, where the houses always look peaceful at night. My car lights shined across the front porch of our home, and the moment I saw it, my whole body froze like the world stopped moving. There on the top step was Oren. He looked like a small doll someone had dropped and forgotten. His little body was twisted in a way nobody should ever be. His face was pale like white paper. His lips were purple and his chest was moving up and down only a tiny bit, almost too small to see. One of his shoes was missing. His backpack was still on, even though it was nighttime and he should have taken it off inside. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe and join the awesome community. Drop a comment below to tell me where you're watching from and what you think of the story. My brother, Zephan, was leaning against the brick wall next to the porch. His arms were crossed and he had a smirk on his face. The same smirk he used to wear when we were kids, especially when he thought he was getting away with something. Just roughhousing, he said, shrugging like it was no big deal. Kids are dramatic. My dad and his wife came out behind him. They looked calm, too calm, as if nothing bad was happening at all. He's fine, my dad said in a flat voice. Boys fall. I dropped to my knees on the wet concrete. The freezing rain soaked through my dress, but I didn't care. My fingers trembled so much that I dropped my purse. They shook again when I tried to pull out my phone. I almost dropped it twice before I managed to dial 911. My son isn't moving, I said, my voice shaking. He's 8 years old and he's barely breathing. Please hurry. Every second felt like a minute. Every minute felt like forever. Finally, after 9 long, painful minutes, I heard the ambulance sirens. 2 paramedics came rushing up the steps. The lead one looked at Zephan first and his whole face changed. He almost looked scared. Then he quickly came over to me and pulled me aside so only I could hear him. Ma'am, he whispered, is that really your brother? I nodded, confused. Because 3 years ago in Georgia, he said quietly, I came to a call that looked just like this. Same kind of hurt kid. Same story about falling. And a man who looked exactly like him was standing in that same spot, with that same smirk. His words felt like cold water poured over my whole body. He looked at his partner. Priority 1, he said firmly. Possible intentional overdose. Possible child abuse. They lifted Oren gently onto the orange stretcher. His small body looked tiny and fragile against the silver rails and the straps. I climbed into the back of the ambulance without asking, and the paramedic, his name tag said Thayer Zephan, didn't stop me. As the doors closed, I looked out the little back window. Zephan was already on his phone, typing fast. My dad and his wife were hugging each other while watching the ambulance drive away like it wasn't even their problem. Inside the ambulance, Thayer moved quickly but calmly. He checked Oren's eyes, put oxygen on him, started in 4 and attached wires to monitor his heart. The whole time he talked to me in a low voice. I testified in that Georgia case, he said. The boy was 9. Same medicine in his system. Same bruises. The stepmom said he was clumsy. Charges got dropped. The family disappeared the next week. I heard they moved east. Never thought I'd see that face again. The sirens screamed as we zoomed through red lights. Oren's small hand was ice cold in mine. Thayer glanced at the heart monitor, then back at me. Does your brother travel a lot? He asked softly. I didn't answer because at that moment I finally realized the truth. The smirk on Zephan's face wasn't just lazy, it was rehearsed, like he'd practiced it many times before. When we reached the hospital, doctors and nurses rushed Oren inside. Hours passed like slow-moving shadows. I waited and waited, my heart feeling like it was squeezing itself into a tiny tight ball. Then a doctor walked into the hallway. Her name was Dr. Celine Maris, and she was the head doctor in the children's emergency section at WakeMed. Her face looked tired, like she had seen many nights like this. Your son is breathing on his own now, she said gently. We cleaned his stomach, gave him 4 fluids and used medicine called activated charcoal. She paused as if choosing her words carefully. His blood test shows adult-level amounts of diphenhydramine and codeine, she said. That is very dangerous for a child. He also has bruises in different stages of healing. By law, we must contact Child Protective Services and police right away. I nodded because my voice wouldn't come out. She looked at me with softer eyes. Your son is awake now. He's asking for you. I felt my breath return. I walked into room 412 on legs that felt weak and wobbly. Oren looked so small in the big hospital bed. Wires and tubes were around him. The beeping machine sounded too loud. His eyes were half open, and when he saw me, his chin trembled. "Mommy," he whispered. I sat next to him and held his little hand in both of mine. Then he told me everything in a quiet voice, like he was scared he might get in trouble. "Zephan gave me orange juice," he said. "He said it was special juice for big kids. He said if I didn't drink it, he would tell everyone I still wet the bed." My heart cracked. "It tasted bad," Oren whispered. "Like medicine." Then my arms and legs felt heavy. I couldn't stand it. He pulled me to the porch and pushed me down the steps so you would see me fall. He said you would cry and look crazy. Then Grandpa's money would be his. Every word felt like a separate stab. "I tried to be brave," he whispered. "I'm sorry I drank it." "You did everything right," I said, holding his hand to my face. "Everything." After a nurse came in to help him, I stepped out to the waiting room. Zephan was sitting with his feet up on a chair playing on his phone. My dad was reading an old magazine like nothing was happening. Safira was sipping coffee with her legs crossed, calm as ever. I walked straight to Zephan. "What was in the orange juice?" I asked. He didn't even look up. "Nothing. Kids are dramatic." My dad closed his magazine and sighed. "Alone, you're exhausted." Zephan was just playing. Safira added, "Oren is sensitive. You work too much." I stared at my brother. This man who used to push me on a tire swing in our backyard when we were little. "He's 8 years old," I said. "You're calling poisoning playing?" Zephan finally met my eyes. His smirk was still there. "Prove it," he said. Something inside me snapped like a stick breaking in two. I took out my phone and called one person I trusted completely, Riven. He answered right away. "It's me," I said. My voice was shaking, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was from anger. "I need everything you can find on Zephan Thaler. Bank records, travel, messages, burner phones. Everything starts tonight." Riven didn't ask a single question. "Send me a picture of his driver's license," he said. "You'll have a first report in 6 hours." I hung up and looked at the 3 people who shared my last name. "Get out of this hospital," I said. "Don't come back. Don't call me. Don't text me. We're done." Zephan stretched like he had all the time in the world. "Good luck with that, sis." They walked away without another word. I went back to Oren's room. I sat in the chair beside him as close as I could get and held his hand until morning came. As the sun rose, my phone buzzed. Oren was finally sleeping peacefully. Riven had sent a secure link. The first folder was called Zephan Master. I opened it. The first file was a scanned page from our grandfather's trust, the document about his money. It had been changed 3 months ago when his health got worse. I read one part twice before the meaning sank in. If Oren ever got hurt in a way that made him unable to control money, all $4,200,000 would go to Zephan. The photo of the trust page was taken by Zephan himself. The data on the picture said it was taken inside the nursing home office in Greensboro, 92 miles away. Security footage showed Zephan walking in wearing a Duke hoodie, signing the visitor's log and leaving 27 minutes later. Riven also found that Zephan bought a burner phone with cash that same week. That same night, Zephan filled up his car and drove south. His first stop, Mon, Georgia, 420 miles away, a 6.5-hour drive. He stayed at a Scottish inn for 2 nights under a fake name, C. Reed. He paid cash. He left after one night. The next afternoon, a 9-year-old boy collapsed in the parking lot of a Dollar General after drinking free orange soda from a man who seemed friendly. At first, people thought it was just an accident. But when the boy was rushed to the hospital, the doctors ran tests and discovered that he had diphenhydramine in his system at almost toxic levels. That is a very strong allergy medicine, the kind you are never supposed to take too much of. The boy's mother insisted that he had never taken medicine like that. Still, the police and hospital doctors closed the case as an accidental ingestion. It seemed over. But I knew better. Zephan, the man who had done this, did not stop. He drove on to Montgomery, Alabama. He used a different fake ID, paid for everything in cash, and traveled another 380 miles. There, an 8-year-old boy at a library summer reading program was offered a drink called Special Punch by a stranger. 10 minutes later, the boy collapsed just like the first one. When the hospital ran tests, it was the same drug. And, again, the investigation found nothing. People assumed it was an accident. Then came Stop 3, Birmingham. Same story. Stop 4, Lexington, Kentucky. Stop 5, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Every single time, Zephan changed the dose of the drug slightly, changed the drink he offered, changed the location. It was as if he was testing a recipe. He wanted it perfect. Perfect enough to make a healthy child collapse, but careful enough that the child would not die. Because if a child died, the money Zephan hoped to get would not come to him. A living child with problems, though, could trigger legal processes that would send money his way. Riven, my partner in this investigation, had already collected detailed evidence. He had toll tag records showing Zephan driving alone, gas station security footage showing him pumping his own gas, and pharmacy cameras showing him buying large amounts of Benadryl with cash. Motel keycard logs showed only one person ever entering the rooms Zephan stayed in. There was no second driver. No accomplice. No one else on any camera. My father and Safira never traveled with him. They stayed home. They didn't know what Zephan was doing, at least not until he came back from the Georgia trip bragging over dinner that Phase 1 worked perfectly. They listened, said nothing, and later when news reports talked about strange child collapses, they quickly changed the subject. They didn't help him plan it. They didn't buy the drugs. They didn't touch the other children. But they protected him anyway. They looked the other way. They shielded him from suspicion. Riven's last message arrived while I was still staring at the timeline he had sent me. He wrote, "He's been waiting for Oren to get old enough to trigger the medical review clause. Your son was always on the final exam." I put my phone down and walked back into hospital room 412. My 8-year-old son, Oren, was sleeping, unaware of any danger. Zephan had spent 3 months becoming a traveling poisoner, all to steal money that did not belong to him. And my own father had chosen to look the other way. I left Oren with 2 plainclothes deputies assigned after the CPS hold, then caught the 6:05 a.m. flight out of Raleigh. My first stop was Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta Airport. I rented a gray Camry under my new corporate card and drove 420 miles straight to Monroe, Georgia in one long shot. At a Chick-fil-A near the interstate, the mother of one of the victims met me. Her hands shook as she handed over a notarized affidavit and a thumb drive. Her son, now 11, sat in the back seat staring at me with eyes that had seen too much. "Zephan called himself Chris," she said. "He gave my boy a bottle of orange Fanta in the park. 10 minutes later my son collapsed. Doctors said it was the highest diphenhydramine level they had ever seen in a living child. The police said it was an accident. I knew better. The thumb drive contained ring camera footage. There he was, Zephan, wearing a gray hoodie, smiling, handing the bottle to the boy and walking away whistling. Next I flew to Montgomery, Alabama. I rented another car and drove 380 miles to meet the next victim's family. The mother met me at a Cracker Barrel off the interstate. She handed me a manila envelope sealed with evidence tape. Inside were medical records, toxicology reports, and a pharmacy receipt that Zephan had accidentally dropped in the trash. A janitor had recovered it, thinking it looked suspicious. Her son, now 12, had suffered night terrors for 18 months after drinking the special punch at the library. She had kept the empty bottle in a freezer bag. Riven commissioned a lab retest which showed diphenhydramine and codeine residues, and the chain of custody was intact. The evidence was real, undeniable. Next, I flew to Lexington, Kentucky and rented a third car to meet the father of another victim. His son had been 9 when Zephan offered free lemonade samples on the porch. The father handed me their Ring doorbell SD card, the original hospital draw sheet with drug levels, therapy records, and a notarized statement. His voice cracked once, only once, as he said, "Tell that bastard he didn't win." Finally, I drove straight from Lexington to Chattanooga, Tennessee, another 6 hours. The family invited me into their living room. Their son, now 10, sat clutching a drawing of the man with the blue cooler who had given him the poisoned drink. They handed me the cooler itself, still sealed in an evidence bag with the empty Gatorade bottle inside. Lab reports confirmed it contained the same chemical signature as the other drinks. They also gave me a second SD card, showing gas station surveillance of Zephan filling the cooler with ice and powdered medication at 2:14 a.m. the night before. Every family gave me the exact same three things. A sworn, notarized affidavit. Original medical proof of the poisoning. Time-stamped video showing Zephan acting completely alone. Every receipt had been paid in cash. Every motel key card record showed only one occupant. Every toll tag record traced only his black Civic. It was all consistent. Zephan had no help. No one was ever with him. I flew home with 4 sealed evidence boxes and 4 thumb drives, each packed with proof of his crimes. I felt the weight of it in my stomach as if carrying the guilt of all those children with me. Back in Raleigh, Riven met me at a climate-controlled storage unit he had rented under a shell company. We laid everything out across a folding table. The affidavits were in date order. Medical timelines were color-coded on a state map, red pins marking the locations with exact mileage logs. Amazon order history was pulled via subpoena, burner phone cell tower pings, and motel key card information all tracked the same story. Zephan alone, every step of the way. The final piece came from a voicemail Zephan had left the family lawyer 3 months earlier, which the lawyer had saved in case it became useful. Hey Mr. Allison, quick hypothetical. If my nephew ever got diagnosed with severe anxiety or something, and 2 doctors signed off that he couldn't handle money, the trust would go to me automatically, right? Just asking for a friend. Everything was now ready. After 15 days of tracking, collecting, and organizing, we had a federal case file 5 inches thick. Riven drove me to the FBI field office on New Bern Avenue. We carried the boxes inside and handed them to Special Agent Monica Reyes. She flipped through the top folder, looked up and said only one thing: "This is airtight. We're taking it from here." I walked out of the office knowing the wheels of justice were already turning. Zephan still thought he was untouchable. He had no idea the storm was already over his head. Weeks later came the night of the Pharma Innovation Awards. The December air was cold and sharp, the sky full of stars. I waited in the green room at the Raleigh Convention Center, smoothing the midnight blue silk gown I had chosen carefully. My reflection in the mirror looked calm, but every nerve in my body was on fire. The invitations had been sent 10 days earlier. They were simple cream cardstock with gold lettering, offering a family photo opportunity, a champagne toast, and honoring my father's birthday. They RSVP'd within an hour. Zephan arrived through the private entrance at 6:42 p.m., sharp black Tom Ford suit, white pocket square, hair slicked back. He kissed my cheek with his usual smirk. "Big night, sis. Proud of you," he said. Dad followed in a navy tux, arm linked with Saphira in emerald satin that caught the light beautifully. They posed for the official photographer I had hired, unaware that the lenses were calibrated for FBI evidence. 48 megapixels time-stamped every angle. Zephan threw an arm around Dad's shoulders, smiled, laughed at some joke, the perfect American family facade. I led them to the VIP table in the center of the hall. Zephan raised his champagne flute and toasted, "New beginnings." The lights dimmed. The opening video started. 400 executives, investors, and reporters filled the hall. Spectrum News cameras rolled live. My company's live stream hit 60,000 viewers. My boss introduced me. And our 2025 Employee of the Year, for the 2nd consecutive year, Eloan Thaler. The spotlight hit me. Applause thundered. I walked up 3 steps, accepted the crystal trophy, and stepped to the microphone. The 200-inch LED wall behind me flashed pure white. I smiled. This was the moment I had prepared for. "This award isn't mine," I said, voice steady. "It belongs to every child who has ever been hurt by someone they trusted." The slides began. Slide 1. Zephan at 19 buying Benadryl in Monroe, Georgia. Slide 2. Zephan at 20 handing a red bottle to a boy in Montgomery. Slide 3. Zephan at 21 walking away in Lexington. Slide 4. Zephan at 22 pouring powder into a cooler in Chattanooga. Slide 5. Zephan 3 months ago photographing the trust clause. Slide 6. The trust clause itself highlighted. Slide 7. His text to the lawyer. The audience gasped. 4 young men, now 14, 15, 16, stood from different tables. They turned and pointed directly at the VIP table. "That's the man who poisoned me," the Georgia boy said, voice loud and clear. "He did it to me too," added the Alabama boy. The Kentucky and Tennessee boys just stared, tears streaming. Zephin's champagne glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. His smirk disappeared. His face went pale, dead white. He looked at me, mouth opening and closing as if trying to speak. Then he screamed. Raw, ragged, furious. My plan was perfect, he shouted. But it wasn't perfect anymore. He ran as fast as he could, knocking over chairs in the hall, trying to escape through the side door. People gasped and scrambled out of his way. Two men in black suits, looking serious and strong, blocked his path by standing in front of him. Zephin hit the floor hard when he tripped over the marble tiles. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut rang out. Dad jumped up, shouting, "That's my son." Sapphira grabbed Zephin's arm and screamed my name over and over, trying to pull him away from the officers. 4 more agents in black suits moved in quickly. Dad tried to help, but the officers handcuffed him too. Tomorrow, I thought, he will be in more trouble for helping Zephin. Zephin twisted and turned on the floor, his face red, spitting as he shouted, "You tricked me. You're jealous of me." One agent slammed his face back down onto the hard marble. On the huge screen behind the stage, the live stream counter kept climbing past 5 million viewers. I looked straight into the nearest camera and said loudly, "This is what happens when someone thinks money is more important than a child's life." The hall erupted into chaos. Cameras flashed, people shouted, phones were held high to record every moment. Zephin was dragged out, still screaming, while Dad and Sapphira cried behind him. I stayed on the stage until the last handcuff clicked. Then I walked off with the heavy crystal trophy in one hand and Oren's safe future in the other. The MC's voice rang through the hall over the loudspeaker. The 2025 Employee of the Year is Eloan Thaler. All 400 people in the hall stood up and cheered, clapping and shouting. I walked up the 3 carpeted steps, took the trophy and went to the microphone. The lights dimmed a little and the huge screen behind me flashed bright white. I smiled the smile I had practiced 100 times in front of the mirror. "This award isn't really mine," I began. "It belongs to every parent who has ever had to fight to protect their child." The first picture appeared on the screen. It showed Zephin wearing a hoodie buying strong medicine at a Walmart. The date and time were burned into the corner. People gasped. The second picture appeared. It showed Zephin handing a bottle of orange soda to a 9-year-old boy in a Dollar General parking lot. The boy fell down just 10 seconds later. The security camera had captured every moment and the image was frozen on the screen. The third picture appeared. It showed Zephin walking away from a collapsed child on a porch. He looked back only once to make sure no one was watching. The fourth picture appeared. Zephin was pouring white powder from a piece of paper into a blue Gatorade bottle inside a gas station bathroom. He had taken a mirror selfie, smirking at his own reflection. The fifth picture appeared. It was from 3 months ago. Zephin pointed his phone at page 9 of Grandpa's revised trust inside the Greensboro nursing home. A part of the page was circled in red. The sixth picture appeared. It showed the part of the page highlighted in bright yellow. It said that if Oren was not healthy enough, all the money would go to Zephin. The seventh picture appeared. It was a text message from Zephin to the family lawyer that said, "So if Oren ever gets sick, the money is mine, right? Just asking for a friend." The room went completely silent. 4 boys, now teenagers, stood up from different tables. One was from Georgia, one from Alabama, one from Kentucky, and one from Tennessee. They pointed straight at the VIP table. "That's him," said the Georgia boy, his voice cracking but clear. "He poisoned me for practice." The Alabama boy stepped forward. "Me too." The Kentucky boy just stared, tears running down his face. Zephin's chair screeched backward. His face went white. His mouth moved but no sound came out. Then he screamed, his voice breaking across the hall. My plan had worked perfectly. Zephin ran again, knocking over chairs, sprinting toward the side exit. 2 agents in black suits blocked him at the knees. He fell hard onto the marble floor and the handcuffs snapped shut. Dad surged forward, shouting, "That's my son. Let him go." Sapphira grabbed Zephin's arm, screaming my name like a curse, trying to pull him away from the agents. 4 more officers moved in quickly. Dad was cuffed for interfering. Zephin twisted on the floor, his face red, spitting. "You set me up. You're jealous." An agent slammed his face down again. The live stream counter climbed past 5 million viewers. I looked straight at the camera and said, "This is what happens when someone thinks money is worth more than a child's life." The hall erupted in chaos again. Camera flashes, shouts, and phones went up high. Zephan was dragged out, still screaming. Dad and Sapphira cried behind him. I stayed on the stage until the last handcuff clicked. Then I walked off, holding the trophy in one hand and Oren's safe future in the other. 11 months later, the federal courthouse in Raleigh delivered the final verdicts under a cold December sky. Zephan Thaler, 23, stood in an orange jumpsuit while the clerk read the charges. They were serious. 5 attempted murders by poisoning across state lines, moving dangerous substances across states to hurt children, cheating to get trust money, and tricking the family. The judge looked over his glasses and sentenced Zephan to 40 years in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. Zephan didn't flinch. He just stared at me with the same smirk while the officers dragged him away. Sapphira Thaler, 39, had made a plea deal the week before. She got 8 years in prison for helping and not reporting child abuse. She cried when the sentence was read, mascara running down her cheeks, begging the judge to let her say goodbye to her son. The judge said no. Dad, 59, was the last. The man who taught me to ride a bike now wore handcuffs and looked 10 years older. He kept his head down the entire time. When the judge finished, he looked at me. I met his eyes briefly and turned away. The trust was dissolved the same week under North Carolina's fraudulent transfer laws. All $4,200,000 was moved into a new special needs trust, with Oren as the only beneficiary and me as the only trustee. A separate civil jury also added $3 million in punitive damages, making sure Zephan could never use any future money he earned. I filed paperwork to change our legal names the day the ink dried. Oren became Oren Maris and I became Eloan Maris. New birth certificates, new social security numbers, new everything. We moved 3 hours west to a quiet street outside Charlotte. Nobody knew our old names. Oren started new schools, a new pediatrician, and a new therapist who specializes in helping kids with trauma. Oren still wakes up sometimes at night calling Zephan's name, but the screams are getting quieter. He started to travel baseball in the spring. When he hit his first grand slam, he rounded third base, pointed straight at me in the bleachers, and grinned so wide the coach said his face might crack. I cried harder than I had the night it all began. Dad wrote once from prison. He sent 3 handwritten pages saying he only wanted peace in the family and didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. I read the first paragraph, then walked to the backyard fire pit and burned the rest. Oren roasted marshmallows over the ashes and asked if the orange glow was pretty. I told him it was the prettiest fire we had ever seen. Sapphira's prison birthday card arrived in June. I wrote on it in red marker, "Return to sender, person unknown," and dropped it back in the mailbox. Zephan's appeal was denied. The court called his actions some of the most calculated and cruel they had ever seen. The other 4 boys, now teenagers, started a private Discord server. They named it The 5. They play Fortnite, trade baseball cards, and sometimes talk when nightmares hit. They call me Aunt Eloan even though we're not related. They call Oren little bro. They're family now. I kept my job and was given a bigger title, a corner office with actual windows and unlimited remote work days. With the first money from the settlement, I started Safe Haven Trust. It is an emergency fund for single parents whose children are in danger from relatives. The first year we helped 41 families move, change names, and disappear safely. Some evenings I sit on the back porch watching Oren chase lightning bugs. He catches one in a cup and holds it up to my face. "Mom. It's still glowing." We unscrew the lid together and watch the tiny light rise into the dark sky. Free. If someone in your family is hurting your child, hear me. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are not alone. Record everything. Save everything. Fight for your child's life, because sometimes monsters don't hide under the bed. Sometimes they sit at your dinner table wearing the face of someone you trusted. And sometimes justice comes, but only if you are brave enough to show it to the world. Oren ran up, grass on his knees, a jar full of fireflies in his hand. "Can we let them go now?" he asked. "Yeah, baby. Let them go," I said. We unscrewed the lid together and watched every single firefly blink into the night sky. The glow floated upward, little sparks of light that danced in the dark. Oren clapped his hands, laughing. His laugh was bright and full of hope. I hugged him tight. "This is our life now," I whispered. Safe, happy, and free. Oren let go of my hand and ran to the garden. His little feet pounded on the soft grass. He twirled in the moonlight, holding an empty jar high above his head. Look, Mom. They're all flying away. I smiled, tears sliding down my cheeks. This was the life we had fought so hard to protect. Every hard moment, every scary night, every tear we had shed was worth it. Oren's future was safe and nothing could take that from us. I looked around our quiet yard. The trees swayed in the gentle breeze. The flowers nodded in the moonlight. For the first time in a long time, everything felt calm and peaceful. Oren ran to the back porch and sat down beside me. Mom, he said softly, I think they're happy now. They're free too. Yes, baby, I said, brushing the hair from his face. Just like you and me. We're free too. We sat there together watching the stars twinkle above. The fireflies had all disappeared, but their soft light had left a memory in our hearts. And in that moment I knew that everything we had done, the courage, the fighting, the never giving up, had been worth it. Oren laughed again, the sound ringing clear in the cool night air. I hugged him tight and whispered, I will always protect you, little bro. Always. We stayed there for a long time, wrapped in blankets, hands holding cups of warm cocoa. Oren yawned and rested his head on my shoulder. I could feel his little heart beating steady and strong. Safe. Protected. The future stretched out before us, full of hope. Oren would grow up knowing that love and courage could defeat even the darkest monsters. And I knew that together we could face anything. The stars twinkled above us, the night was quiet, and the world felt right. Oren drifted to sleep, a soft smile on his face. I watched him, my heart full, knowing that justice had come and we had won. Finally, I whispered into the night, Good night, Oren. You are safe. You are free. And you will always be loved. And together we watched the world continue, bright, hopeful, and full of promise.